When I think of Lent, I think of renewal. Lent comes from an Old English word that means springtime. It's a time to begin again, to renew our effort to follow the Lord more faithfully, more intently, and to re-engage with practices, fasting, almsgiving, prayer, to become more and more like Jesus, who himself spends 40 days in the desert. We follow the Lord out into the desert so that we might blossom and grow as he calls us to. Yeah, the Lenten season is important to us because to be a Christian means we must die to self. And in Lent, that is what the focus is to die to self so that we might live. It's not simply for the sake of pain, it's for the sake of rebirth, which only comes through self-denial. We all have a tendency to let ourselves off easy. We all have a tendency to not engage in those things that are difficult and trying. But this is a time of accountability and a time of focus on this critical aspect of the Christian way of life, self-denial and sacrifice. It's, I think, particularly appropriate to study the Passion narratives. So in all four of the Gospels, of course, we have slightly different accounts of how the Lord gave himself up in those final days of his life. We do this in a special way, of course, in the Stations of the Cross, as we reflect upon his pilgrimage unto death. But that's always a fertile place to look during Lent. The passages regarding his passion and death. So in terms of prayer, what I like to do is I try to spend some extra time in spiritual reading. This is something which is certainly part of my spiritual life in general, but try to add some books that especially, again, focus upon some element of the Lord's passion. I also think it's a very valuable practice to find someone in particular that you can pray for during Lent, especially that bothers you, or someone that you don't get along with, or frankly, that has really hurt you. Pray for them by name every day during Lent. In terms of fasting, certainly the regular giving up meat on Fridays, which is harder than it sounds. You never want a hamburger more than on a Friday in Lent. One practice that I return to quite frequently is trying to give up turning on my radio when I get in my car. This is something which is just by habit. I will get in the car and I need to fill up the space. I need to hear something, and it's just a distraction. And so trying to fast from more noise. In terms of almsgiving, that's probably the most challenging one for me as a priest. There certainly are causes that I could give more to, but I think what is even more important is to spend time in service of one's neighbor. As Christians, and especially in Lent, but really the entire year, we are duty-bound to have a special love for the poor, and that means you have to actually know them. You can't just give them money. That's important, but to really get to know them, hope to be able to do that this coming Lent. Yeah, Ash Wednesday is always very powerful. It's interesting. People always make a big deal about Christmas and Easter, but you also get a lot of people coming on Ash Wednesday that don't come to church, frankly, throughout the year. People do realize, even today, even in our broken society today, they recognize their need for renewal and for repentance to do better. And it's an opportunity to preach to people that sometimes are not there and to remind them of the Lord's love for them and that their sin does damage and they have to begin again. So probably Ash Wednesday. And then it's not necessarily in Lent, but it's right after Lent, during Holy Week, the Chrism Mass. The Chrism Mass takes place on Holy Thursday morning, where all the priests of the diocese come together with the bishop, renew their priestly promises, the holy oils are blessed. That's a very powerful ceremony. I think that the phrase memento mori, which is a Latin phrase that means remember death, is a very important phrase every day of the Christian's year, but in a special way during Lent. We all will die, and when we die, we'll be judged on love. As we go through the busyness of our life, it's very easy to forget that one day, could be this very day, it's going to stop. It will simply end. I don't mean to get too dark right away here, but it's going to happen. All of us will die, and we have to be ready for that. So I think that could be a very valuable thing to reflect upon in Lent, and it can help us focus. I will be asked by Jesus, how did you use your life? And Lent's a time to get ready for that, an exam that will come to us all. Happy